Hello, everyone. My name is Kimberly Knight. I'm the Director of Caregiver Support at the Senior Source. And we are so happy that you guys decided to join us today. You could have decided to go anywhere and spend your Saturday, but you came here to be with us, and we really appreciate that. This is our inaugural Caregiver Resource Fair here in Collin County. This is something we will be doing annually from this point on. And so the way that this works is that we bring together resources that you hear us talking about all the time. You hear people saying that there are resources out there, but most people don't know how to access those resources. So it is our goal to bring everybody in one place at one time so caregivers or solo agers can come out to these events and get connected directly to the services that they need. So we are really excited to be here today and to do just that for you. Before we introduce, or I introduce today's speaker, we have 3 more door prizes to give away, and so I am going to do that right now. So if you have, is the Elder Financial Safety Center financial counselor at the Senior Source and one of my esteemed colleagues. Steve Benton has helped older adults avoid the dangers of financial uncertainty and exploitation as an Elder Financial Safety Center financial coach and counselor at the Senior Source. He specializes in complex cases, including fraud, scams, and elder financial abuse. Steve has been active in financial services industry for over 40 years, including participation on industry boards, business conduct committees, and as a securities industry arbitrator. Steve began his career as an investigator for the National Association of Securities Dealers, now the FINRA, and retired as Senior Vice President of ING's flagship broker and/or dealer, financial network, investment corporation, and an organization of certified financial planners and other investment professionals. What it won't say here that I can tell you about Steve is that he's extremely knowledgeable, patient, kind, and if there's a way to figure it out, he's got it covered. So I am just going to bring him up because I'm going to let him show you exactly all the information he can share with you about frauds and scams, because it's something that's running rampant in our community, unfortunately. And our seniors and older adults are the ones who are falling prey to these predators. So come on up, Steve.
Okay, thank you, Kimberly.
You're welcome.
Okay, hear me all right in the back? Yeah. Okay, good. Well, thanks. Good afternoon. This will only take about 2 hours, so we're in good shape. Okay. Now, we got a lot to talk about. You know, back when I turned 65, my best friend said, "Welcome to the metallic age." And I said, "What's the metallic age?" And they said, "That's when you have gold in your teeth, silver in your hair, and lead in your rear end." And I said, "That really is me." You know, while the COVID problem has seemed to subside, the tsunami, if you will, the epidemic of elder financial abuse, if you will, financial exploitation is running rampant, causing tremendous losses out there. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And so you may not know about the Senior Source, you probably heard already, but formed in 1961, so they've been around for 63 years. That was the same year as the Dallas Cowboys started. How many were Cowboy fans? Both of us. Yeah, great. Okay, that's great. But anyway, social service, Senior Source is a social services agency helping seniors. Been around that long. There's our elevator statement. Senior Source is the one-stop shop in the Dallas area for older adults and their loved ones to navigate aging. Okay, so that is all-encompassing, and we certainly do that with 55 or so agency employees. So they've been around a long time. They know what they're doing, and I hope you take advantage of their skills and so forth. Back in 2014, we formed a collaboration with the District Attorney's Office and the probate courts to address financial exploitation of seniors, because it was we were operating in silos and not much was getting done. And our grant at that time allowed us to hire 2 full-time prosecutors and a full-time investigator that do nothing but senior cases now, so they don't get shuffled to the bottom of the deck. And so it's been very successful. You see our different actions. Of course, the DA does prosecution, the probate courts do protection, and we at the Senior Source do prevention. And a lot of that is doing talks like this, letting people know what's going on, helping them with other aspects like utility bills and so forth. But we're trying to prevent financial exploitation that's going on out there. So we do presentations at senior groups just like this. And so if you have churches or anything like that that need this type of presentation, I do 3 or 4 of these a month. So what has the EFSC impact been? You can read for the right side. We have over 50,000 customers that we've served in this last 10-year period. We have secured or had outcomes of $177 million. That's been funds that we've recovered, or that's benefits that we've been able to get people in line with. And then we've educated, that's the word for skilled there, over 60,000 people. So again, that is our job, and we have a track record of over 50% that we have actually saved money or had outcomes for these individuals. So let's get to the subject at hand. Here, Gary Larson on the far side, my favorite cartoonist. This is actually my favorite cartoon, bummer of a birthmark, Hal. And there's the target right on his chest. And why are seniors so vulnerable to financial fraud and exploitation? And the answer is fairly simple. 70% of all the assets in this country are owned by baby boomers and above. The youngest baby boomer is turning 60 this year, okay? The last year of the baby boomers. So that means 60 plus, all the way up, own 70% of all the assets. At the same time, their abilities are declining. How many abilities are declining in here? We're starting to have cognitive difficulties. We feel like we're behind the curve in technology. It's moving so fast. And so we are just, it's the perfect storm that we've got the money and they want it. And so it's pretty easy pickings. So elder scams and frauds is huge, but it's probably the most underreported crime in America today, because people are embarrassed that they've been scammed. They rarely report it to family members and so forth until all the money's gone and they need help. But let's take a look at, this is a financial planning side that I use when I teach financial planning. We won't go through all of these, but I wanted to focus on that top left, that longevity risk. Because what's happening is people are living longer. And there's definitely a reason for that. The medical advances have been very significant. I'll show you a slide in a second of the advances specifically in cancer and in heart, okay? And it's just dramatic over just the last 2 decades. So people are living longer, okay? And also they quit smoking. That was big. And other things that are causing people to live longer. And we'll be looking at that shortly. But a good example is my brother-in-law, my wife and sister. He got stage 4 cancer, and they began planning his funeral, and that was 4.5 years ago. Okay, and so he's had stem cells, and I mean he's living a very vibrant life still today. And so that's a good example of what would have killed him earlier. So let's look at that chart I'm talking about. And you see here, this is just deaths per 100,000. Look at that dramatic drop. Those 2 lines are heart and cancer, and that's just in a 20-year period, okay? And that's only going to get better and better as these advances are being made. So I'm sure you all know people that have survived cancer and have lived, very good lives after being initially diagnosed. But it's longevity literacy. People from a financial standpoint don't realize that their money has to last longer. And I always get that question when I'm counseling individuals. They say, am I going to have enough money? And I said, that is an easy equation. We've looked at your income down to the penny, Social Security, other income coming in. We've looked at your assets that eventually will have to make up any shortfall you have in your budget. There's only one thing missing from the equation, and what is that? Date of death, right. Nobody knows. And so what's the old country saying? Get all you can all you get, and sit on the lid. So that's what I tell people. You don't know how long you're going to live, but you better save your money, and you better accumulate it as fast as possible. So let's a few more of these slides. The silver tsunami, of course, is the baby boomers. They've affected everything from diapers to grade school buildings, colleges, housing, and so forth. They have been the dominant demographic, if you will, for many years. So at 65, the average life expectancy is to age 85 now. So over a 50% chance that if you reach 65, that you're going to reach 85. So that's another 20 years that your savings and income have to last. Okay, and 1 out of 10 will actually live to the age of 95. And so the average savings and investment, 202,000. Average Social Security checks only $1,800. Okay, so it's interesting. We're right now at the peak boomer. These last boomers were the biggest group, and so it used to be 10,000 a day turning 65, and now it's 11 or 12,000 a day that are turning 65. And of course, there's big concern about Social Security, and it's supposed to have problems in 2034. And we spend a lot of time in that when we talk about finances with seniors. But the baby boomers are really interesting because they're the first demographic that have actually reached retirement and still have mortgages. That had never happened in the history of this country before. And if you're from Texas, probably the reason for that is we had the Homestead Act for many, many years that prohibited anyone from taking equity out of their homes and getting cash for it. We were the last state in the country to allow that. And then once that door opened, Texans ran through it. And so baby boomers been spending money, for the last 20 or 30 years, buying Suburbans and Colorado cabins and things like that. And then they wake up at retirement and wonder why everything's not working out and still have mortgages and so forth. So a couple of other things, generation cohorts, that's a fancy name for generations. And so you recognize the greatest, the silent, the baby boomers, Gen X. And what I threw in there is that Generation Jones. This is something that they're finally waking up to, that they made, the demographers, if you want to call them that, made a mistake in making this baby boomer so wide, so many years, because the latter baby boomers are really different from the early baby boomers, okay? And there's a lot of articles being written in the Wall Street Journal and Forbes about this now, that these ones that are just now in their 60s are really at a disadvantage to the early ones. And a perfect example of that is my own family. I had 3 brothers. So my older brother and I were early boomers, if you will. And then 10 years later, my 2 younger brothers came along. And the differences are dramatic. Of course, they're still working. They've been through the Great Recession. They've been through a lot of things. They've lost jobs over the years. When they bought their first house, the mortgage was 12%. And my older brother and I were already on our second house. We had already started growing our equity and so forth. And it goes on and on. And basically, the latter boomers actually identify with Generation X more than they do with baby boomers. So that's just interesting stuff. But what I want to show you is this tension between baby boomers and millennials. And it's really dramatic because the millennials, how many of you have heard the expression, okay, boomer? Okay, they roll their eyes and say, okay, boomer, because we're different. And but they started calling us greedy geezers, okay? And you remember that expression, youth is wasted on the young? Well, they're saying money is wasted on the old. And so you're going to see this tension in Congress and everything else as the baby boomers fight to keep things, and actually the millennials want that. So I want you to be aware of that. The millennials actually outnumber baby boomers now because mortality tables don't lie. A lot of boomers have passed away, and the millennials now have caught up. There's more millennials out there than there are baby boomers. So it's important that we all vote and keep our benefits in place. And I know we have some younger people in the audience here, and we'll speak to that in a minute. We'll talk about you. But if you want the 65 plus demographic, and again, I'm laying out the reasons for the vulnerability of seniors. It is the fastest growing because of the baby boomers and all of them turning 65 and up. And you'll see the numbers. I won't go through there, but look down in 2040, they're going to be nearly 22% of the population is going to be 65 plus. And if you want evidence or proof of this, here's a stunning statistic for you that in just a few short years, the manufacture and sale of adult diapers is going to exceed that of infant diapers. Okay, now that's reality and what's happening. So, and what demographic from that list over here a while ago, what do you think is the generation that's experimenting the most with marijuana today? Anybody have any idea?
Gen Z.
Nope, it's the baby boomers, okay? When you think about those baby boomers, when they were in high school, 95, 98% of people wouldn't touch it because you went to prison. And so everybody was afraid to try it. But now they're retired and marijuana is prevalent everywhere. They can get hold of it. Their joints hurt, and they hear from their neighbor that it really helps. So it's interesting that there's that much experimentation. But look at that 85 plus group. They're experiencing a fourfold growth between 2000 and 2040. That shows those extra 20 years that you're getting, that people used to not make it too far past 65. So that's really happening. And how many people know somebody that's turned 100? Okay. And remember Willard Scott on the Today Show? It used to be a big deal, and now it's not a big deal. Everybody knows one. My aunt up in McKinney, she turned 103 and woke up every morning saying, darn, I'm still here. And my cousin, her son, he said, no, you got that wrong. She said, damn, I'm still here. And that popped my bubble. She was a Sunday school teacher up there for years and years. So I don't really believe him. But when you look at the 100, we see this sadness. When you turn 100, you can't play with Legos anymore. And I just wanted to warn you of that. And you're probably looking at me saying, what is he talking about? And it's right there on the box, ages 4 to 99. And they're going to take away your Legos. And so I'm just warning you about that. And then one last slide on this, and that's 65 plus. It's this huge bucket, 22% of the population, 2040. They're not the same. In financial planning, we've been using these breakdowns for years. You have the young old, the old, and the old old. And basically, it's the go-go years, the slow-go years, and the no-go years. And basically, Father Time is undefeated. And so we are all aging, and we don't necessarily fall in this. It's a bell curve. Some people are, pretty sickly as they even reach 65. And then we have 95-year-olds jumping out of airplanes. So it's not an automatic. But anyway, somewhere in here, one realizes that your get up and go got up and went. And you need to start slowing down. So let's get into this. What's the number one risk of vulnerability to financial exploitation? It's isolation and loneliness. It's the number one risk factor for financial exploitation. And many people are trying to age in place. They're trying to hold on to their houses. They want to stay where they are and so close, and they're very lonely. We saw this during COVID to extremes at that time. But more people live alone today than ever before. Back in 1960, there were 7 million people that lived by themselves, and now that number is 38 million. Okay, that's a 442% increase of living alone while the population has only doubled. So people are getting more and more isolated. And if they're not plugged into social activities, going to churches, going to senior centers and so forth, they become very much at risk. ARP did a study that this failure to socialize, of living alone, is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So you're really affecting your health when you're not socializing with others and so forth. So we're slowing down as we age, again, struggling to keep up with the technological advances that are out there, easy targets for scammers. And you see the poor memory began to take effect. We didn't really talk about this in a couple of slides ago, but I think it's the next slide. Let's take a look here. Yeah, let's talk about the aging in a second. But we're slowing down, seniors struggle online. You're opening up dangerous portals into your home, allowing people into your life that you wouldn't even let in your front door. And so we have a saying down at the senior source, if you thought taking dad's car keys away was tough, wait till you try to take away his computer. Because he lives with that computer. In fact, the computer has become more dangerous to his lifestyle than driving a car, because by that time when you're ready to take his keys away, he's probably not driving over 5 miles an hour anyway, and never leaving the neighborhood shopping center and so forth. So it's more dangerous now that he's going to lose all of his money and his care and so forth. So anyway, let's talk about aging and finances. Here's the stats for you. At age 65, 1 out of 10 began to experience cognitive difficulties. Okay, 1 out of 10 began to experience. And so we talked about that extra 20 years once you reach 85, to reach another 20 years once you reach 65. Well, it's 1 in 3 at 85, okay? So look at that dramatic change from 1 in 10, those extra 20 years, especially once you reach the 80s, is when you really got to watch out. And that's why I like to see younger people in the audience. I said, you better be watching your parents. And, I went out to dinner. Yeah, there you go, watch her. Yeah, I went out to dinner with my youngest brother the other day and his wife, and her parents are still alive. They're 89 and 93. And I said, "Are y'all involved in their finances?" And they go, "Oh no, they don't let us look at anything." And I said, "Well, you've got a problem. You need to walk through that stiff arm and get involved with your parents because they're getting scammed." And I can't tell you how many children come to my office when mom and dad have lost all their money. And you heard about boomerang kids that come back to live with you. Now you got to think all boomerang parents because they can't live by themselves anymore. They don't have enough money. And so they're coming to live with their kids. And so it really behooves you that as they age, getting up into the 70s, mid 70s, you better start getting involved. And it's not easy, but we help you do that. So we've talked about that cognitive difficulty. What it is the frontal cortex. That's where your logic, your financial decisions are made, and that's what begins to disconnect. And it may not be dementia, it may not be Alzheimer's, it may just be old age. Okay, they're not being logical and making decisions. This frontal cortex doesn't develop until you're 23 or 25 years old, and that's why teenagers do such stupid things. They're not thinking through the consequences, like throwing bricks off of overpasses. They don't think of the consequences of their actions. So finally, they reach up in their mid-20s and they have a bell curve life of making maybe it's not good decisions, but they're making logical decisions in their life. But then as they age, it begins to disconnect. And that's where we're seeing a lot of problems. And when you talk about some of these scams, these people are just convinced that they're in love. They're convinced that they've got to do this, that their finances are in danger. And that's what the con artists are taking advantage of. So let's take a look at really what is the difference between frauds and scams and financial abuse. And here's what it is. Frauds and scams are really strangers, okay? These are people that you don't know. You never will see them in person, okay? They're on your phone, they're on your text. They are everywhere. They're in identity theft and so forth. And typically, that money that's lost in those frauds and scams is irrecoverable. It's never found again. So that's hard information to give to a senior because they think the FBI ought to go find this person. And most of the time, they're overseas and so forth. But any of these things, frauds and scams, are typically stranger danger, if you will. And so just like you teach the kids, you need to teach the adults that any stranger you don't know is dangerous, okay? And especially when they start talking about problems that you've got, and we'll have a slide on that in a minute. Now, the financial abuse this is a trusted other, if you will, or fiduciary. You know, I can't tell you how many power of attorneys that I've had to get involved with. In fact, that's like 61% of my cases. Mom's in memory care and daughter has the power of attorney out spending all of her money. And so, again, these we can actually recover. We can stop. You know, we can slap them on the hand, quit stealing mom's money, and so forth. And so those things you'll find. But here's what I wanted to focus a little bit of the fraud awareness and recognize the signs, kind of put some alliteration here, you know, the warning, the danger. What was the old Lost in Space, danger, Will Robinson, danger. Okay, any of these things that if somebody says there's a problem with your account, okay, the IRS, Social Security, don't believe anything like that, okay, until you check it out. Never check it out with the people that are bringing it to your attention, okay? They're scammers. They want you to believe that you've got a problem and they're going to help you solve it. Or you've won a prize, okay? You've won the lottery and you didn't even enter it, okay? And that one just befuddles me relentlessly. I can't believe that happens. The pressure to act immediately. There's urgency. Something's going on. We'll talk about your computer going haywire and stuff like that. They pretend to be from an organization you know. Okay, they're calling from the senior source. They're calling from the IRS, Social Security. People have no time to call on you. Okay, they really don't. I mean, this service industry today, all you get is phone trees, and nobody makes calls, especially the government. Okay, the bureaucracies that are out there, they're not going to call you. And then they ask you to pay in a specific way that's weird. We're going to talk about gift cards here in a second, Bitcoin, actually paying in gold. All those are just ridiculous. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I saw something on NBC News last night about a woman in White Settlement who's getting phone calls supposedly from Chase and something about Bitcoin. She was donating all this money to Bitcoin.
Yeah, but that was the 23,000 one. Everybody, I think, saw that. Everybody's watching the same news show. I can trump that by, about 5 or 10 times in terms of the amount of losses. I wish they had called me. I'd given them a more exciting case than that. Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, since I work in the tech industry, I know how it is to fake the originating number so that the number even looks like it's coming from your financial institution, even though it's a scammer at the other end.
Right. And we're going to get into what you do with phone calls, what you do with text, because, you've got to be very careful. This is a caregiving seminar, so I threw this slide in there. Outside help inside the senior's home is very problematic. You've got to be very careful with society today. These were just some helpful hints. Remove all the jewelry and other valuables from the home. Keep them elsewhere. Lock up the financial information. Install cameras. Okay. I mean, if you're doing that when you have a baby and the babysitter, you certainly need to do it with the caregiver. And make sure mom or dad's being taken care of. And make unannounced visits. Just drop in. If you're, and I tell this to people that are afar, that live in New York City and their mom's down here and under a caregiver, have neighbors knock on the door and visit and things like that. So those are just some interesting ideas. You've heard the term inheritance hijacking. These caregivers get involved with this person. They feel like they're the only person that's out there helping them. And the next thing you know, the will and the house is all signed over to this caregiver. And so it's not just caregivers, it's trusted, I use that term loosely, it's friends, things like that, and family that are stealing. You see that in the family all the time, and we'll talk about power of attorneys here in a second. So, all right, trusted contacts on your financial accounts, and I would really recommend that you do this. This is fairly new, the last couple of years. What your brokerage firms, your investment firms, your banks, your credit unions now have available for you, that they ask you, would you like to fill out a trusted contact form, that if you start acting out of character, if you start doing things that they know is a scam, you're giving them permission to contact this person. And I did this immediately. When I found out about it, I had my assets at Schwab, and I filled out their form, and I put my wife's name in there, and my 2 sons after her. And I said, if I start acting out of character, wiring money overseas, I want you to contact her immediately, except if it's a romance scam. Don't call her. Don't let her know about that one. But no, kidding. But that's the problem. These investment people and banks, they know that you're getting scammed, and they try to stop you. Okay, and so they really want somebody to call, because in this era of privacy, they're not allowed to give any information out. And so this trusted contact, they're not going to give information about the account. They're just going to say, have you talked to your mom lately? Have you talked to your dad lately? They're doing things that we don't really think is proper. And actually, under the Texas Financial Exploitation of Seniors Act, they're allowed to freeze consumers' accounts for 10 business days. And it really irritates the consumer when they're wanting to wire money overseas, and all of a sudden, oh, your account's frozen because we know you're getting scammed. So before that, they couldn't stop you, and now they can. So anyway, those are available to you. I'd really highly recommend that. This is not the payable upon death that sometimes you put on accounts for your kids to avoid probate and so on. This is a thing when you start doing things you shouldn't be doing. Okay? And investment scams and frauds. Everybody's heard of Bernie Madoff, $17.5 billion. I got to tell you, Bernie Madoff and I were on a committee together in Washington, D.C. I was really young then. And he was the smartest guy in the room. Everybody in there was just stunned with his intelligence. And I mean, none of us, nobody on Wall Street had any idea that he was the thief that he was. And it was incredible. And of course, we had our own Bernie Madoff here, Doc Gallagher, the money doctor here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Anybody familiar with him? Yeah. And he was Saturday morning radio, which I would highly recommend that you don't listen to. It's unvetted, and you don't know what's being said out there. The radio station is is saying, we don't know what he's saying, but we have no responsibility. They think that's a CYA. So anyway, he would sign off his radio program every Saturday, see you at church tomorrow. And he stole $30 million. This was actually our first case at the Elder Financial Safety Center back in 2015. We referred that to our DA partners. He's now serving life in prison, and all of his assets have been confiscated. But anyway, we'll talk about trust and distrust here in a second. Government agencies, do they ever call? We talked about that a little bit. The IRS and Social Security never call. They're so far behind in their lives. They don't have time to call you. So suspect everything. U.S. Treasury Department, okay? Things like that. See, the Social Security is a third rail issue because it's so big part of the income of a senior, and all of a sudden your Social Security number has been stolen. And you immediately panic. And let me give you an example. I had a case right in the middle of COVID, the summer of COVID, 2020, and a Mesquite woman was 93 years old, never been married, and she was awakened at 7 o'clock one morning by a call that her Social Security number had been stolen. It was the U.S. Treasury Department calling her. And right, they've worked all night long and decided to give her a call. And but she's not thinking clearly, and they said, yes, your Social Security number was stolen. It was used to rent a car. How many of you have rented a car with your Social Security number? Yeah, and so she's not connecting the dots. And it was driven to Austin. It was used in a drug deal, gone bad, and a guy was murdered. I mean, they just ratcheted up the culpability, if you will. And that's what she wondered, am I culpable in this? And he said, that's all right. We're law enforcement. We're going to take care of you. I've been assigned your case. And they proceeded to move. She proceeded to withdraw money and put it in FedEx boxes and mail it all over the country. And she was told, don't tell anybody or we can't help you anymore. And of course, that's the con artists always say. They want to isolate you and keep you from sharing with others so that their game is up. And so actually, she finally mentioned it to her grandniece. And she didn't have any kids. And the grandniece called us immediately. I took a Mesquite detective out there. We met on our front lawn with all of our masking on and everything. And she was livid. You know what she was mad about? That her grandniece had told us. Okay? It took us 6 weeks to convince her that she was being scammed. We saved her last $123,000. And so, I mean, it just, she was fully convinced that that was happening. So, let's see who really believes a debt can be settled with iTunes cards as payments? I mean, it just stuns me that you can take care of your jury duty, fine with an iTunes card. Go buy some iTunes card and give me the number on the back, right? And so, anyway, asking to be paid by a gift card is always a scam. It's always a scam. And so in groups like this, I love the old middle school cheer. When I say this, you say that. When I say gift card, you say scammy. Let's do it louder. When I say gift card, you say scam. Yeah, and that's the only thing you'll remember from this presentation. So, all right, don't take the call, make the call. Okay, we've pretty much locked down phone calls. We've convinced people to quit answering the phone. Everything ought to roll to voicemail, roll to an answering machine. 90% of con artists hang up before leaving a message. They want to talk to a real voice because they know they can scam you, okay? And so you're eliminating 90% of your exposure just by not answering the phone, okay? And if something is left on your machine or your voicemail that concerns you, never call that number back, ever, okay? Again, your bank isn't just standing ready to call you, okay? They don't have people doing that, especially in the middle of the night and or late at night after dinner, all right? So always get the card out of your wallet and call the bank direct, call the credit union direct, call whoever your service provider is, but never call that number that's left because that is always a scam. Now, texts are a big problem now. I need to update the 2023 numbers. I haven't found them yet, but just the massive growth of texting. And what is happening out there is these robo-texts that are coming through are just massively growing. And the urgency is so different from your voicemail, okay? Because you might check your voicemail once a day, once every other day. You might check your email occasionally. But when your phone buzzes, what do? Okay? The stat is 95% of all texts are looked at within 20 seconds. Okay? So we've created this whole population of immediately thinking that something's urgent. And so again, that's the first warning, is that there's urgency. You know, you've been compromised, something's going on, and it creates problems with you. I mean, you're really worried about it. Don't ever click, okay, on that text. Again, that goes straight to con artists, all right? So if you're concerned, and if it's whoever it is, your bank, again, call the number direct. Go on the website and type it in yourself. We'll talk about that in a second. Don't go on the website that they give you, okay? You go direct and find out if you really got a problem. You know, your Amazon account's been frozen. That puts fear in your heart, doesn't it? So I'm not going to get any more packages. But anyway, texting has now become scammers' primary entry point for theft of your data and money. And so again, 20 seconds you look, and you immediately are panicked, all right? If you just learn that it's probably nothing, but if you really want to follow up, call direct to that provider and nowhere else. I'll give you a quick story. You've heard of the Geek Squad. This one is just horrendous. It's making the rounds out there. Had an Air Force Academy grad, 85 years old. Okay, he flew fighter jets in Vietnam. He flew for American Airlines for his entire career. He was the caregiver for his wife. In 2016, she died. And so he's been living alone since then, okay, 7 or 8 years. And he gets a text from Geek Squad that your 2-year maintenance fee is up. We're going to be charging your account at the end of this week. Let us know if this is a mistake, okay? And of course, he doesn't know Geek Squad. And so he clicks on it and says it's a mistake. He's 85 years old, and what is it? 1 out of 3 began to experience cognitive difficulties. He definitely was isolated, living alone, and was starting to have problems, okay? But it was a law enforcement officer that convinced him that he was groomed over the next 45 days to believe his whole financials were at risk. And so they said, we're going to come alongside you. It was a Federal Reserve law enforcement officer. And of course, he had been an obedient pilot and saluted and said, good, this guy's going to take care of me. And he proceeded to start withdrawing. First of all, he sold all of his American funds investments, $545,000, wired them into a money center bank, which I won't mention who they are because we're suing them right now, but because they didn't stop him, okay? And so he took out his money in $100 bills, averaged $16,000 of withdrawals over the next 30 days, and was told to go to Walmart and buy thermoses, stuff the $100 bills in there, wrap them in foil, and mail them all across the U.S., okay? Until every single penny he had was gone, and then they wouldn't answer the phone anymore. And so why didn't this bank stop him? I mean, how many of you have withdrawn $10,000 in $100 bills from a bank? They come in bricks. They're wrapped. Okay, they're wrapped by the Federal Reserve or whoever does the money. And so they were pushing across these huge amounts of $100 bills, and nobody tried to stop him. I think it was one teller said, are you sure you know what you're doing? And of course, you're asking the victim that had been told, don't tell anybody or we can't help you. And so that's the only thing they did to stop him. They didn't call Adult Protective Services. They didn't freeze his account like they're allowed to in the state of Texas. They could have frozen his account for 10 business days. And so we've got a lawsuit against them right now that they should have stopped him. So again, that's how, and you'll hear about these Geek Squad things all the time. Because it makes sense, but it's not the Geek Squad. All right, can you spot the difference between these URLs? Amazon.com and Amazon.com, which one's the real one? And I know you can't hardly see that. But actually, one is the real website, and one of them is a con artist, okay? And so how do you know if you're going to click on a website, whether it's real or not, okay? And so, again, here's the difference. That top one is a fake. The bottom one is the regular one, and you can barely tell the difference. You know, on your computer, you can actually change languages, change alphabets. And so in that one little A, they switched over to the, what's it called, the Cyrillic A is in there. And so if you're smart, you're saying, I've got to go to the website and see what my Amazon problem is. And they provide Amazon.com. Well, Amazon.com is the website. And so you click on it instead of typing it yourself, okay? So again, don't click on anything at all. Okay. Yes, if you're worried about it, go elsewhere. Remember Ronald Reagan, famous policy, trust but verify? Those days are over. It's distrust everything. For seniors in this age of technology, just distrust everything. Everything that you see, everything that panics you is almost guaranteed to be a scam. Okay? That's what they're going. Fear and greed is what drives things in our economy. It always has. So only go directly to your provider, verify or validate a message received if you are concerned. Do not click. Okay? And so I think we've kind of run that into the ground. Scammers use a variety of things. And put my time up here. Almost through, and we'll get some questions and answers. Scammers use a variety of tactics to convince elderly victims to withdraw money from their bank account deposited into unregulated virtual currency kiosk. How many of you know that there are Bitcoin, okay, or virtual currency kiosks, ATMs, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area? Okay, there's dozens and dozens of them. Okay, and so they, in the middle of a con, they will have the person go to the bank and withdraw money. How much can you take out of an ATM, a normal ATM of cash, if you want to get money out of your bank account? What is it, limit usually $200, maybe $500? You know, you don't take 23,000 out of an ATM. And so you have to go to the bank and you got to pull that money out, withdraw it, and then you go find one. They tell you where to go find one of these things, start feeding in these $100 bills, and they give you the code for Bitcoin. And of course, the con artist says, now just give me that code. Well, they've just stolen your money, okay? And so, again, it's fear that something's going on, that this person feels like they've got to do it. But this is reality, okay? And they need to be shut down. But romance scams, this is probably the one that's caused the most emotional distress and financial distress. And basically, anybody know what the term catfish means? If you're under 40, you probably do. But ask your younger if you want to know what it is. But basically, it's impersonating somebody over the internet that you never meet. They always have reasons they can't meet up in person. They're always flying to come meet with you, and they never quite make it, okay? But eventually, they always ask you for money. And this is what's called the long game. They will, and you have different demographic here. The female demographic is basically 60 to 75, looking for love one last time. Maybe they're divorced, widowed, single, and so they start hearing from this. Well, 10 years ago, it was an officer in Afghanistan or Iraq, and now it's a North Sea oil rig guy, engineer, and they're always busy over there, and they're trying to get back home. And hundreds of thousands of dollars are being sent overseas. People are selling their houses because this guy and her are going to buy a house together when he comes, and they don't actually ever meet the guy face to face. Now, of course, they have a picture of him, and I wrote this article a couple of years ago, How Romance Scams Start on Facebook. It's got this nice guy in a suit and so forth, and I've talked about the birthday wishes, and how many of you wish everybody happy birthday on their birthday? I never put my birthday on Facebook, and I always just get real envious of my friends that, God, look at all those birthday wishes, but I'm smarter than they are, but they got your birthday, and now you have 30 women that are wishing you happy birthday, and when you look on their Facebook, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, and so there's a guy out there watching that, and every one of your friends gets a Facebook post that says, I saw what you do on Facebook. I really think we have a lot in common. And all it takes is one of your friends to be lonely and looking for romance, and that's how it starts. And that's how they start on Facebook. This guy was the former prime minister of New Zealand. And all you had to do was look up the picture. Oh, he's not a North Sea oil rig guy. He's the prime minister of New Zealand. So again, be very, very careful. How many of y'all know that Dr. Phil has now come back to Texas, and he started Dr. Phil Primetime. And so the 4th episode, I was asked to be a subject matter expert on romance scams. And so it was episode 4. If you want to go back and look at it, you can just go online and see it. But this lady was convinced that she was in love with this guy. And it's really such an interesting story, but it's just typical. And he just never can make it back. He's actually in prison in London because they've confiscated his stuff. But she's in love and has a nice picture of him in a car. And Dr. Phil's producers, they actually found the guy that was in that car. It was a doctor from Louisville to Kentucky. So they flew him in, okay, and walked him out on stage, and you should have seen the look on her face. But basically, he was the picture that she was holding up as her, love of her life. So again, it's happening out there. Now here's the latest: pig butchering. You're going to hear this more and more. It's coming out of Asia, and romance scams on steroids, cryptocurrency, and now this one's aimed at the male. Okay, the retired male, and it's Asian women that are pictured as being very wealthy. And of course, the conversation gets to the point where the guy says, "How'd you make all your money?" Cryptocurrency trading. And so you can give it a try if you want. Why don't you just send $10,000? And the guy does it because he's got 500 grand in his retirement account. And the next thing you know, he's made 15-20% return. They put a template over a real trading template. And so he keeps sending money. And I've had 3 cases in the last 6 months, one for $1.2 million. The one the Secret Service sent us was $3.5 million. And still to this day, his 3 daughters cannot convince him that it's a scam. And he's down to his last $115,000. He's sold apartments, and he's in love with this 35-year-old Asian woman. He's 70. And so it doesn't have to be romance, though. It's greed, because they start saying, man, I can get 15-20% cryptocurrency trading, and it's fun dealing with this. So anyway, just watch out for that. One of my first crypto cases was a couple that had put 100% of their retirement funds in cryptocurrency and then couldn't find the number. It was stolen from them. So they were in my office, couldn't believe that I wasn't going to really pursue this. And there's nothing you can do. It's gone. The money is gone. It will never be recovered. And they were really angry about it. My wife, being an RN in a hospital for years and years, they used to have a saying, you can't fix stupid, but I can sedate it. And so, I mean, even if you're interested in cryptocurrency, it's like gold and silver. It may be 5-6% of your portfolio, but it's just a taste, okay? Because it could be real, okay? But you never put 100% of your funds in there. So let's wrap up with some of these other frauds and scams. The grandson imposter, he's in jail down in Puerto Rico, needs bail, grandma. It's always grandma. Grandpa would say, let him sit and rot, But grandma's crying in front of and we pretty much shut this down because the Krogers and the Western Unions won't send the money anymore. If it's a 65-year-old lady who's never wired money in her life, they'll say, you're being scammed, and she'll cry until they make her call their family and find out he's still at work. He's not even in Puerto Rico. So the tech support scam is huge. Your computer starts going crazy, and they say, what is it called, the Trojan horse, has invaded your deal. Man, we got to control your computer real fast. Do not turn it off. Don't turn your computer off, or it'll be worse. And the best thing you can do is turn your computer off. Just turn it off and it'll go away. But you give them control of the computer, and the next thing they say is, oh no, they've gotten into your Chase account. You need to call Chase immediately. Here's the number. And of course, you're calling the cubicle next to the guy. And in the meantime, you're moving your money where they tell you to move it. So that's big. Grants, you get a nice email from friends on your email list that says, hey, the government's giving out senior grants. I just got $4,743. That's like a nice round number. So it's got to be real. And it said, you need to try it. Here's the information. Click on here. And you're giving them your social security number. You want a grant yourself. And that's all a scam. Okay? And so grants are a scam. The family emergency scam. I really recommend that you have a family password. Okay? I want you to think about this from your children up to the parents, up to the grandparents. You all need to have a one-word password that you know so that if somebody calls and says you're kidnapped, and because AI, it's voice recognition, things like that now, all you got to do is say, what's our family password? And it might be peacock, it might be popcorn, but everybody in the family knows that word. And if they can't produce that word, it's a scam. So, but you're seeing that come up more and more. So again, these are all wild and crazy things. Okay, sword or shield, the power of attorney, it can be used to protect you. It can stab you in the heart. And again, these are a big part of my cases that I get when it's family oriented, that mom's in memory care, daughter's out spending the money, and so forth. So we have a lot of uses and abuses. I'll just tell you, one of my first cases way back was a guy that have 3 surgeries. And he was going to have a surgery, go to rehab, recover, go back to the hospital, rehab, and so forth. He's going to be gone for 90 days. And the big question was, who is going to pay my utilities? Who's going to take care of my house? But more importantly, who's going to feed the dog? He had no children, never been married. So he calls his nephew, gives him a full, general, durable financial power of attorney. And when he got out, his house had been sold, all his investments are gone, nobody knows where the dog is. I mean, he lost it all because you give that person all power to do everything that you can do. And so who can you trust? That's the big thing. We do a lot of teaching on that. This is my favorite slide, Texas Unclaimed Property. Used to be in the Dallas Morning News all the time, now it's online. claimittexas.gov. This is a process called escheatment. It's spelled differently than it sounds, but companies cannot hold on to your money if they can't find you. They're required to turn it over to the state. The state doesn't want your money. They want you to have it, and so you just go on there. And in this group right here, we have a 20% hit rate of all of our clients that we filter through this. 20%, 1 out of 5 people we find money for. And so if you've never been there, you need to look yourself up, look up mom. And if you're looking for a hobby, okay, just sit there all day long and put in your friends, your neighbors. I guarantee you'll have a 1 in 5 hit rate. And it may be $60, maybe $100, but my biggest case was $350,000. And it was 3 sisters, 2 of them lived in San Diego, 1 of them lived here in Dallas, which was my client. And there it was. It was oil royalties that had built up over 3 generations. And they were the inheritors. But it took 2 years to go through probate, to reopen probate and get them the money, but they were quite happy. So anyway, I recommend that you do that. And with that, I think I hit it right at 12:50, which allows 10 minutes, if you wish, for any questions or comments at this point. Good. All right, no. Anybody have any questions at all?